Hey everybody, this is DJ Ann
and DJ ZARINA
from Luminous Studio, and you're listening to the WWJD podcast, What Would Jesus Do? Episode 13. The show that reimagines what would Jesus do as a Gen Z living in today's society. Built upon the Catholic teachings, we are here to give you the advice you actually want and discuss the things that troubles the today's youth.
That's right, DJ Ann. So why don't we go straight to our first story from Mr. M? It says here, to the WWJD team, I've been bullied on Twitter by 2 people in the last couple of weeks. I've told them to stop and to leave me alone, but they keep at it. After I told them to stop and leave me alone, I stopped communicating with them, but they kept tweeting me. I feel like I can't say anything about someone on Twitter about bullying me. I try to make it look like I don't care, but it never seems to work. I've already reported and blocked them. Does anyone have any suggestions, please? Regards, Mr. M.
Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yes, and now to share their insights and experiences, let's call on our first guest, Mr. M. Hello, Mr. M. Welcome to the show.
Hello to you both. I apologize for not being able to show my face as I would like to stay anonymous for this.
Completely understandable, Mr. M. Now, would you like to elaborate on your experiences?
Honestly, this whole thing has been pretty traumatic for me, but I know that I need to talk about it to get it off my chest. I first started getting text messages calling me names, and then as the days passed, I felt more and more alienated from my classmates. I saw a whole narrative which painted me as a cheater, a hypocrite, and a snitch, or whatever to say the least. In essence, someone thought that I had cheated in a recent exam and was caught but placed the blame on others. This is an incorrect notion on all fronts, and so I attempted to reason with them, but they wouldn't listen. In the end, all I could say was to leave me alone and to please stop. Please stop. But to no surprise, of course, it didn't work. I've got communication with them and blocked them, but all of this weighs heavily on me, which is why I turned to you guys for advice.
I understand, and I heard that you attempted to talk to them, so I wanted to ask if you were open to doing it again.
Well, yes, because our last conversation wasn't very fruitful.
Then I suggest that you start with that. After all, it is important that they understand where you're coming from and vice versa.
I appreciate the thought, but what if it isn't effective, and even if it is, I don't think I have it in me to interact with them the way I did before.
Well, as long as you are not considering revenge as an option, you are already walking towards the path that Jesus taught us. For the scripture says in Romans 12:21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
It is also imperative that you show them mercy by not preemptively judging their intentions. If they are not responsive to your efforts, then show mercy by finding it in your heart to pray for them so that they may see the truth and not be blinded by their bias.
And as recipients of God's mercy, we are also obliged to do the same to our fellow men. Scripture says in John 6:36 that be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And even so, we are also implored to share the truth. In Ephesians 4:25, it says there that, therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. First, I also suggest that you explain the situation from your point of view, as to what you believe is true. Because if you just leave it at that, bystanders wouldn't know anything and would have a bad impression of you, which could start the cycle all over again.
It is also important to have an open conversation with them, all bearing your truths and their truths to resolve the issues that trouble you all.
In summary, what we need is dialogue. It's for you to come forward and talk to your bullies, your class, and God. Be merciful to those who seek to harm you and let them see the truth of the matter. Solve this as one community and never let yourself be a catalyst of isolation or vengeance. This is the way that we were taught in life and scripture. So pray for yourself and for everyone else that all may be able to embody the Jesus in dealing with this.
And in Evangelii Gaudium, The Joy of the Gospel by Pope Francis, will stress the need for dialogue, compassion, and solidarity, standing with those often left out. So with that, we hope that you, Mr. M, will take our advice in a sincere heart. Once again, thank you for sharing your story with us, Mr. M.
Yeah, no trouble. I would also like to thank the program for having me and for giving me a different perspective of the situation. I would be sure to act in the way that we as Christian Gen Zs are expected to act or to embody Jesus' teachings, as I hopefully reconcile with the persons involved. Thank you so much.
And before we end our today's episode, let me also recommend to you and to the listeners out there to take time to read Pope Francis's encyclical called Fratelli Tutti. He emphasizes the importance of truth, justice, and communion through the dialogue in fostering a more inclusive and compassionate society.
We'll be sure to support you and pray for you in this endeavor, Mr. M. And that concludes today's episode of the WWJD podcast, What Would Jesus Do? The show that reimagines what would Jesus do as a Gen Z living in today's society. Tune in next week to see what stories we'll have next. Bye-bye!
Bye!